All right, welcome back. We have a knife here today, one that I am a little behind on presenting, but very excited about. And this is the Tactile Knife Company Maverick. This particular one's the Micarta. I have a titanium that is in the mail on its way, but I got to give a shout out to Vanta EDC. He's out of Houston, Texas, and he was able to help get me one of these a little earlier on than I could on my own. So thank you for making that happen. And thank you for this beautiful packaging, by the way. You used some very, very nice paper towels. Very high quality production value for today. Thank you. All right, there it is. Super excited. The Tactile Knife Company Maverick. I'm going to pull out another box real quick because you may be familiar with the Tactile Knife Company Rockwall. And it is fairly similar box size, which is interesting. I expected maybe that it would be a much bigger box. Wow, okay, it's definitely a much bigger knife. And let's have a look here. So Maverick, Micarta, Magnacut 63 to 64, which is impressive because on the Rockwall thumb studs, they were doing 61 Rockwall hardness. So they've really stepped that up, which is exciting, I think, for a lot of people. And then you can see here on the back, they've got a little bit about it. So Maverick, Magnacut, Stonewash, Micarta finish. So again, I've got a titanium one coming in soon, but I was excited to get my hands on this one. And wow, that is really light for the size. Immediately a good deployment, which is awesome. I was kind of hoping for a little more drop shuttiness, honestly, there. It's kind of stuck open. It deploys open really nicely, but it is a 2-finger. I was thinking maybe, and maybe it'll be different on the, yeah, it's interesting. Maybe it'll be different on the titanium because of the rigidity, but that is definitely a 2-finger. And wow, that is actually really loose. A lot of side-to-side blade play. Nothing back and forth, but yeah, just kind of a classic axis lock issue. I've seen similar on the Bug Out and others where when you have a pretty light handle material, it's very hard to get these things to be, you know, kind of drop shut and fidgety if you don't have a really good, sorry about that, a really good handle material. So size-wise, pretty similar to the Bug Out, and definitely, let's pull out my Rockwall. This is one that I've actually carried and sharpened, quite a bit bigger than the Rockwall. Let's get the blade out as well here. And sorry for the hand, just getting over that injury from when I tried to get my son's car out from underneath the couch and dropped the couch on my hand a little bit and cut it open there. But let's go ahead and get some of this out of here to clear the scene. And yeah, you can see this is a really big knife. Like that is a much, much bigger. Great feeling hand for what it is. It's got a little hot spottiness, I'd say. You know, it's probably the Micarta to some degree also. Here is a little bit of a hot spot along this line here. It's pretty thin feeling. You can definitely see that as you go into it. Really love the, man, that is cool. Look at the way that they did the milling here on the pivot. That is impressive. There are not many companies. This is $249. That is really interesting how you have to have your hand on both sides. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like you can fully pull that axis lock all the way in, but it won't drop. Very interesting. So the one thing I'm going to have to do here is throw, it looks like a T8 maybe in there, and see if we can tighten things down a bit and see how that changes the feel of that. I think that's a T8. Could be a T10. Yeah, no, T8. So it must be T8 everywhere. Was kind of what they're going for here. Let's give that just a slight tweak and see where we start to get better lockup. I've heard that this is a bit of an issue on these. Okay, that's pretty darn good at this point. So if I can still, okay, I'm still getting to 2-hand, no problem. So that's actually not terrible, but man, you cannot do the 1-hand, and it looks like it's getting pulled all the way. It's just so weird that that doesn't release. Maybe it's just one of those things that you got to break in. I did find with the Bug Outs that you really have to break them in, but they are still generally 2-hand. You can kind of get them to 1-hand if you use them a lot. But that is sort of one of the natures of the beast of the axis lock, is there are only a few of them out there where you can 1-hand them. You can see I've used this mini one actually quite a bit more, and it's pretty 1-hand at this point. So size-wise, that is a sizable knife. Let's do this the right way and just compare to a mini Bug Out. You're talking about a lot more knife. for sure here. So let's see, blade length, 3.5 almost. Total length, just shy of 8.25. And I'm gonna guess on the weight on this Micarta one. I think I've looked it up, but probably around 3.25, 3.5 ounces. It feels quite light for the size. The deployment is quite good there, by the way. Man, it's just really that pulling it back where you need both hands on the lock. Wow, even lighter than I realized. I was thinking maybe 3.25 at the bottom end, but that is 2.7 ounces, which gets it, you know, within an ounce of the bug out. And it's definitely a lot more knife there. So now that I've got that, also, you know, it's a little disappointing on the quality control, which these guys have had a little challenge with over the years. But that is pretty damn good luck up right there. So if I'm still getting full drop, that's good. I mean, this is, damn, it does still have a bit of blade play there. It'd be really nice if you can get, that's got almost none now. Let's see if it can still deploy perfectly. So that's still really deploying well. That was user error there. Okay, let me zoom out here a little bit and just give you a couple last impressions on this before I'll probably do a little more in-depth video once I get the titanium one in. But now I feel like it's at least in good shape. And I really want to see it in titanium. I will say this feels like just a more solid knife to me. You can get this thing to get really nice, full, solid lockup on the tactile Rockwell. Whereas this is really just kind of, you know, a fancier version of a bug out in a way to me on the Micarta. I'm really looking forward to seeing this in a titanium, but I think Tactile is heading in the right direction with this, but they've still got some work to do to continue to advance their game. Good on the edge. This is one thing that they have struggled with a bit in the past, so good to see that the edge feels pretty darn good here. Yeah, that is very slicey. It's not perfect. It's not quite what I would call Spyderco level, but it's good. So, you know, this Micarta one for 249 bucks, I think is, you know, a solid USA made knife. It's not perfect. Pocket clip feels really good. A little weird how they have these screws sticking up. That's not my favorite, but it would make it very easy to grab. I'm really interested to see what this is like with the titanium handles. You can see there's no milling out, but it's still pretty light. I guess there's maybe a touch of milling out there, but yeah, an interesting go at the axis lock. I'm not blown away by this, but I'm not disappointed either, is what I would kind of say here. There's nothing here that kind of blows me away. It's pretty much what you'd expect from Tactile. A solid knife that you could say is made in the USA. And, you know, looks like a flat grind, nice flat grind. I think that's their, you know, their kind of their go-to. They had a flat grind on the Rockwells also. What I'm curious to see is if they do some collaborations. They're so good at milling. So if they do some collaborations like they did on some of the past knives, like the Rockwells, this could be a very interesting series if you start to throw like a mag, you know, a mag style milling on this. It could be pretty nice. Nice standoffs and backspacers. I'm sorry, not backspacers, but nice standoffs to as backspacers back there. I'm trying to see, it looks like it's almost perfectly aligned here on this milling. I'd really be curious to see on the titanium ones if that's a pure continuation on the milling there. I bet it is. They're really good at that. Let's see if we can tell more from this angle. Boy, it looks really close. So overall, a really nice knife. You can see the designer's mark here. And good to see just more what I'd call, I don't want to call it just budget, but like reasonably priced knives out of an American maker. There's only like a handful that I kind of put in that category. I would say clearly Benchmade is doing a really good job of that. I'd say Spyderco does a really good job of that. And I would say TRM, Three River Manufacturing. You know, aside from that, there's not a lot of companies that put out a quality knife like that for, you know, 250 bucks. And in the titanium, $350. There's really only a handful. There are others like that, but you know, it's like in terms of like what I think are doing really solid, appeal to the masses type stuff. Those are the main ones to me that kind of stand out. So I'd say TRM. This reminds me mostly of TRM. That's like the closest knife that I would compare to this. I'm curious how the centering is here. Way off. I don't know if, oh, no. Is that because I pushed it? The centering, that's really weird actually. You can kind of push it around and it changes where the centering is. So that's concerning. There's definitely some issues on like the centering and the lockup on this knife where I'm not overly thrilled. I think Kunwu does a better job for an Axis Loctite knife than this, candidly. But overall, pretty good. I'll spend some more time with it. I just wanted to get my first 10-minute impression there. Compare it to some other knives in the collection real quickly. Think about sort of where it stands, and I'm gonna get some little off-screen time with this thing. I'll carry it around a little bit. I'll get a titanium one in the next day or two here. I picked one up from White Mountain Knives, as well as one from Tactile to try and get one here as fast as possible. So we'll see who gets here first. White Mountain Knives always just does an amazing job of getting the knives for a reasonable price. And then we'll see what the sort of longer term impression is of this. But it's nice to see them making a bigger knife for sure. I just don't know if the execution, and this is not something new for Axis Lock. It's always been kind of an issue with a lot of manufacturers. I don't know if they, you know, made it much better than anyone else in that sense. So it would have been nice to see a little better execution on the Axis Lock, like a drop bear from Kaiser. It's Kaiser, right? The drop bear I've handled and was really good, and the Kunwu was really good. Both made in China, you know, which is kind of weird, but overall, a pretty good addition to their family, and interested to see what else they keep doing over time. So hope you enjoyed that. Please like, subscribe. I'll be doing more content on the Tactile Maverick, and watch out for that. So I'll see you on the next one. Take care.